On this episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, join me as I discuss the heartbreaking murder of Hannah Clarke and her 3 children by the man who supposedly loved them. Coming up right after this. Hello guys. Welcome to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. I am your host, Belinda Brady, and welcome guys. Welcome to my little podcast where I talk about true Australian murders while I drink coffee. That is it. And today I am drinking a black coffee with cookie dough syrup, and I'm not liking it. I think it's because I've switched the brand that I buy. I won't say what brand I'm drinking now, but it's not cutting it. So I'm just going to have to go back to what I know and like. But hey, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So whatever you guys are up to, however you are listening to me, whether you're walking, gymming, sneakingly listening to me at work, or getting ready for work or school, or getting ready to have a, settle down for the night. Thank you. I hope you caffeinated. I hope you've got your drink ready. Let's get stuck into this episode. Now, I also want to do a real quick shout out to my new listeners who have joined me. I've got some lovely people who have joined me from Glasgow. I love Glasgow. I was there earlier this year. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Bloody freezing, absolutely freezing. And I've also got someone from France who has joined me, a town called Mirabel. And we've also got someone from Oregon who's joined as well, and some people from Dubai. Welcome guys, that's awesome. I love seeing where you're all from. And of course, if you want to shout out to me, don't be shy. I don't bite. You can buy me a coffee, you can send me a text, you can leave me a comment on my YouTube video, and I've just worked out how to use the Apple Podcast. Yes, I am tech challenged, so if you do leave me a comment via Apple Podcasts, I will reply to you, I promise. But thank you all for listening. I appreciate it so much. And if you do want to subscribe to me, I do offer a subscription. I think it says $3 a month, and you will get ghost stories. If you think us Aussies are nasty, wait until you meet our ghosts. Wowzers. Okay, so let's get stuck right into it, guys. This episode is titled Hannah Clarke, He Wouldn't Hesitate to Kill Me. Now, straight up, I'm going to give you guys a trigger warning. This episode discusses domestic violence and the murder of 3 small children. So if this is upsetting to you, listener discretion is advised. And my sources for this episode are www.courts.queensland.gov.au and theguardian.com. Okay, guys, grab your coffee, get sorted, get settled, and let's get stuck right into this episode. It is horrible, but it happened. I remember when it happened, and we're going to discuss it because Hannah's story needs to be heard again and again and again. So let's go. Domestic violence is a vile, insidious crime that affects us all in every corner of the globe, and it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, young or old. Domestic violence doesn't care. And by the time we are adults, most of us will have been a victim of it or know someone who has. And domestic violence is much more than violence. It's mental abuse, psychological abuse, gaslighting, controlling, financial abuse, sexual abuse, and so much more. And for the many victims of it, they don't quite realize they're in it until they are pushed to the brink, and then that is the most dangerous time for them. When they decide, I've had enough, I want to leave, that is when the danger is sky high. And this was the case for Hannah Clarke and her 3 beautiful children. Hannah Clarke was born on the 8th of September 1988 at Royal Women's Hospital in Brisbane, the only daughter of Sue and Lloyd Clarke. Hannah had a younger brother, and she was a bright, bubbly, friendly, hardworking girl who was school captain and loved by everyone who met her. She was also really sporty, and when she was 16, she represented her state in trampoline. And soon after, she started coaching trampoline classes, and she also started teaching kindy gym at vacation care. Hannah was teaching kindy gym at a PCYC in Carringdale, Queensland. That's where she lived. She lived in Queensland when she met Rowan Baxter, a 31-year-old from New Zealand. Now, Rowan was born in New Zealand in 1977 and experienced a tough childhood. His father was jailed for sexually abusing his sisters, and Rowan had a son from a previous marriage and was in Hannah's class. So Rowan's son was in Hannah's class, and unbeknownst to Hannah, Rowan already had form with domestic violence. At this stage, he was living with his wife, a woman he had met when she was 16 and he was 18. And in that relationship, he quickly displayed controlling behavior and anger issues. And by the time their son was born, this poor girl wanted out. She'd had enough. But Rowan would not accept her wishes. He would show up uninvited. He would leave notes on her car. He also told her that he put a hose pipe in the boot of his car and had planned to end it all. So she felt so bad that she had no choice but to stay with him. And at some point, the young family moved from New Zealand to Australia in 2007. Now, Hannah met Rowan in 2008 when she was 20 and he was 31. Now, not only was his son in her trampoline class, he had started working there as a boxing instructor. Now, the two started seeing each other despite Rowan still being married, and Rowan's wife, finally seeing an opportunity for an out, took it. And Rowan, being distracted by Hannah, agreed to it. Now, they agreed on shared custody of their son, but if there was an issue, Rowan would lose his temper and on one occasion threatened to smash down his ex's door to get to their son. Rowan told Hannah he was separated and only living with his wife for the sake of their son, but this was a lie. Rowan told a friend he was living with his ex as he couldn't afford to move out, and his wife knew he was seeing Hannah, but she didn't care. She was happy Rowan was distracted by somebody else. At about 4 months into the relationship, Rowan moved in with a friend. So he left his wife, not left, but he moved out of the ex-marital home. And it was around this time that Hannah fell pregnant. Now, Hannah wanted to keep the baby, but Rowan thought she was too young. So he, I guess, encouraged her to have an abortion. So she did. They moved into a townhouse in Mansfield, Queensland, and Hannah worked full-time at an athlete's foot store, and Rowan was a rep for a pharmaceutical company. They moved again before getting married when Hannah was pregnant with their first daughter. This was in October 2012, and even at their wedding, Rowan was displaying, all I can say is pig-like behaviour. He had the shits that the guests didn't give them more money as a wedding gift because he wanted to use that money to go on a honeymoon overseas. Now, the couple's daughter, Aaliyah, was born on the 10th of April 2013, and Hannah was instantly smitten with their daughter, instantly smitten. She loved being a mother. And it was around this time that Rowan stopped paying child support to his ex for their son. Now, Hannah and Rowan decided to have a crack at owning and running their own gym. And they opened one in Cuppa in Queensland. And they got Hannah's parents to invest 18 grand in it, and another investor kicked in 40 grand. Now, the gym did not do well, and they were always behind, and often Hannah's parents paid their rent and their bills because they couldn't afford it. They couldn't keep up with it. In January 2015, Hannah and Rowan opened Integrate Gym at Mansfield, Queensland, and Hannah fell pregnant with their second child. And their daughter Laianah was born in March 2015, with son Trey following in December 2016. Hannah loved her children, absolutely adored them, and she loved nothing more than being with them. Her 3 kids, she absolutely adored them. And little Trey was her shadow, and he was never too far away from her. So the couple moved Integrate to another site, and they bought another car, Both registered in Hannah's name as Rowan owed money to the penalty department, so he couldn't register a car until he paid his debt. They moved to Carindale and were co-tenants on the lease where they lived. And though the gym was open, their gym was open, it struggled. Rowan was a shithouse businessman. He couldn't manage money. He was also rude and blunt to new and ongoing clients, making them go elsewhere. I mean, why would you go to a gym where the guy who owned it was rude to you? Hannah was that gym's saving grace. She was the draw card, and he knew it. In 2019, they moved the gym again, but it continued to struggle, and they closed it in December 2019, owing investors $75,000. Amongst all this, Hannah was dealing with Rowan's filthy temper and controlling ways. When they first started going out, Hannah went on a cruise with her friends, and Rowan carried on about it so much. He would constantly contact her, asking what she was doing and who she was with. And not long after they started living together, he told her she shouldn't wear shorts, short skirts, or the colour pink, as pink was for little girls. She could wear a bikini, but only at the beach. He made her have a joint Facebook page so he could see who she was talking to. He tried to stop Hannah from seeing her family, or at the very least seeing them for as little as possible. When they were with her family, he would criticize her. And if she tried to have some alone time with her parents or her brother, who she was extremely close to, he would hang around and try and stop it. He stopped her and the kids from going to the family's weekly barbecues at Hannah's parents' house, and he borrowed Hannah's brother's car, driving it for months, racking up $200 in road tolls and returning it on empty every single time. And when Hannah's brother had enough and asked for it back, Rowan cracked the shits and stopped talking to him. He also made it hard for Hannah to talk to him, which was hard because, like I said, Hannah and her brother were extremely close. Like, even just reading this is pissing me off. The guy sounds like an absolute jerk. Absolute jerk. But it gets worse. It gets so much worse. On Mother's Day, Rowan let Hannah see her mum for half a day, and then made her come home to celebrate his dead mother. He stopped his family from attending Hannah's family's annual Good Friday celebration. So every Good Friday they'd get together and have a feed and be together. Rowan stopped that, wouldn't let Hannah and the kids go. Rowan wouldn't let Hannah's mother have her grandchildren at her house. When Hannah was pregnant with Laianah in 2015, she told her mother Rowan slammed a back gate on her leg, giving her a bruise. When Trey was born in 2016, Rowan worked 3 days at the gym and stayed home the other days. Meanwhile, Hannah took gym classes, looked after the kids, and was trying to do an online marketing course in between. Hannah told her mother that Rowan always criticised her, shouted at her that the house was a pigsty, and asked her what she did all day despite working and raising their 3 children. And if she refused to have sex with him, he'd crack the shits and give her a silent treatment. And he told her, he had the nerve to tell her, get a second job because they needed more money. This is coming from a man who only worked 3 days a week. The man who only worked 3 days a week, who had a failed gym behind him, telling his wife, who was looking after their 3 children, working and trying to do a course to better herself, that she needed to get a second job. Hannah got a job. She did. She got a second job at Athlete's Foot, and she worked there Monday and Fridays and worked in the gym in the other days. But wait, there's more. As if you can't hate this guy enough already, there's more. Rowan was often rude to Hannah's mother, and when pulled up on it, would give Hannah the silent treatment. And if Hannah's mother didn't apologise for doing nothing wrong, he would continue with the silent treatment. One night in May 2019, Hannah called her mother and told her that she had rejected Rowan for sex, which caused him to lose his temper, and he smashed Hannah's watch and left the house. Hannah was terrified he was going to kill himself, so she drove around looking for him, but he came home later and told her that he had driven to a church car park with the plan to kill himself. So not only Was he a bad-tempered, abusive man-child? He would then lay on the "if you don't do this, I'm going to kill myself" guilt trip. Not long after, one Saturday morning, Hannah made a joke during a gym class that Rowan was running. Just a joke. He cracked the shits, stopped the class, and wouldn't let the children go to breakfast, which was the usual activity on a Saturday morning. They'd have a gym class and they'd all go to breakfast together. But because Hannah dared to crack a joke, the kids couldn't go to breakfast. This was just another tactic of his. If he was mad with Hannah, he would take it out on the children by not letting them do the things that they love to do. And if he left their toys on the floor for too long, he would throw them in the bin. In September 2019, Hannah turned 30 and wanted to have a dinner with her family and friends, but Rowan planned a surprise party for her at the gym. So that was it. One of Hannah's friends told Rowan that she didn't want that. So Rowan cracked the shits again and cancelled the whole thing, telling her she couldn't have a celebration for her 30th and ignoring her for days. Hannah's family ended up organising a celebration for her. In November of that year, Rowan's behaviour escalated. Hannah qualified to compete in a big CrossFit comp in a team. So she qualified for her and three other people to compete in a CrossFit competition. CrossFit's like this massive fitness, I guess, class movement across Australia. I'm sure it's worldwide. I probably need to check that, but let's just say it is. And Rowan failed. He wasn't fit enough for it. Another member of the gym, a man known as Mr. D, was the second member of Hannah's team, and a friend of Hannah's was the third, with Rowan, of course, saying he'd be the fourth member. When he pulled out due to injury, he expected Hannah to pull out as well. She didn't, and he then gave Hannah the silent treatment, when she complained of a gym session with him being too full on. It was around this time that Hannah became sus that maybe Rowan was also recording her conversations, because he was starting to repeat stuff to her that he had no way of knowing she'd said unless he was in the room or perhaps recording her. Now, the first day of the comp was the 8th of November 2019, and Rowan made Hannah take a class that morning. When she got home at 7 a.m, he and the children were gone. He had turned his phone off and couldn't be contacted. Hannah called her mother in tears, saying he was punishing her for being in the comp and that Hannah was scared that he might have done something. She was so freaked out she actually started vomiting. Rowan finally sent her a text message saying that he couldn't believe she was still going in the comp when he couldn't. He came home later that day saying he had then taken the kids to the beach, and that's why he couldn't be contacted. Rowan told a friend that when he left the house, he left an old phone recording. So an old phone just on the bench recording, and he recorded Hannah talking to her mother. So he knew everything that was said. And when this friend told Rowan how fucked up that was, Rowan then backtracked and said it was done by mistake. It is more than likely that Rowan had also been recording Hannah and left devices in her car and in other places in the house. So by the time Rowan decided to rock back into the house, Hannah still wanted to go to the comp. So she took Aaliyah to the comp to watch, but Rowan refused to come. This resulted in a huge fight where Rowan grabbed Hannah by the arm, leaving red marks on her. He said they were going to be talking about it later, and Hannah said no more discussions are going to be had. She was out. She had enough. At the gym, Hannah told a friend who had commented on the red marks on her arm that was it, and that was the final straw. Hannah was starting to plan her escape, but she kept her head down, and Rowan was ramping up his abuse. He checked her phone constantly, smashing it when caught, and recorded her and accused her of having an affair with Mr. D after she spoke to him one night about the comp. Hannah told her mother of her plans to come back to the family home with the kids. Now, anyone will know when a woman is planning, or a man, when you are planning to leave a domestic violence situation, planning to leave is the most dangerous time because the perpetrator is losing control and they know it. And that is quite often when they will act out and do something. Now, on the 5th of December, a friend of Hannah's called her mother and told her Hannah had taken the kids and left. Now, she was scared of what Rowan might do, and she had hidden her car, leaving her phone in it in case Rowan was tracking her. And Hannah had arrived at her mum's house with the kids not long after. Now, Rowan started bombarding Hannah with phone calls telling her she was hurting the children, she was destroying the family, and these are all guilt tactics that abusers will use when they're starting to lose control. On the 6th of December, Hannah went to Carina Police Station and met with Senior Constable Kirsten Kent, but she was scared of slapping a DVO, a domestic violence order, on Rowan for fear of what he would do. So she got a new phone and changed her phone number. Somehow Rowan convinced Hannah to come out with him, and when they returned, he came inside crying. So they went out together, and when they came back to Hannah's parents' place, Rowan came inside crying. He stayed for dinner, and then Hannah said she was going to go home with him. The next morning, Rowan called Hannah's brother saying he had to come home as Hannah was hurting the children, which of course wasn't true. Now, on the 8th of December, Hannah bumped into Senior Constable Kent at a shopping centre who gave her some domestic violence advice. And Senior Constable Kent then later discussed Hannah's case with the Vulnerable Persons Unit. Now, Hannah was still living with her parents and had taken the children to visit Rowan when Hannah's mother hadn't heard from her for some time. Both parents went over there to find Rowan putting the kids into bed, telling them that Hannah was crazy and making things up. When they insisted on taking the kids, he started crying and said they should have helped him sooner. It's all their fault. They felt helpless and ended up having to leave the kids there. One morning, Hannah was in her parents' house and Rowan let himself in. Hannah was in the bedroom talking to one of the children when she realised he was there, and when she confronted him, he had a phone in his hand. He told her it was her mother's, but Hannah knew it was not. It was more than likely he was recording her. On the 21st of December, Rowan had the kids for a few days and agreed to bring them back to Hannah at 4 p.m. as the Clarkes had hired a van to take the family to visit Hannah's nan the following day. At 4:30, he texted Hannah saying he was running late. At 5:30, he was stuck in traffic, and then by 6:30, he decided he was keeping the kids. Hannah begged him to return the kids, and Hannah's dad drove to Rowan's house and saw Rowan driving down the street, and he followed him. He parked in a car park, and Hannah told him to come back to retreat, as she was terrified Rowan would see him and do something stupid. Rowan called a friend telling him he was going to keep the kids, and finally at 8:30 p.m, Rowan called Hannah saying she could come collect the kids only if she'd meet him in a car park and she was on her own. The two met and he handed over the kids, and Aaliyah was so upset because they were running so late. So Rowan's little controlling man-child tantrum tactic was now upsetting the children. Rowan then applied for full Centrelink benefits. So Centrelink is Australia's social security, so you can get benefits such as the pension or child support. And he applied for full Centrelink benefits, saying he was the sole carer of the kids. But when they called Hannah to confirm this, she told them no, she was the main carer. On Christmas Eve, Rowan complained about not being with the kids, so Hannah and her dad agreed he could spend the day with them at the Clarkes' house. He rocked up at 4:45 a.m. and left at 5 p.m. He gave his kids gift cards, but he hadn't loaded them with money, as the Clarkes found out later when they went to buy toys for the kids with these gift cards. So he gave them gift cards that had no money on them. They were just paper, or they were just cardboard. On the 26th of December, Hannah met Rowan at a park so he could watch the kids skate. And when he said he wanted the kids to spend the night with him, she refused. So he grabbed Laianah and threw her into the car, telling Hannah, "You have caused this. It is all your fault," and drove off. Now, Hannah was hysterical. She was beside herself. And turns out Rowan kept Laianah for 3 days, and he actually crossed state borders with her, driving her to a friend's house in New South Wales, which is a neighbouring state, telling Hannah it was her fault and she shouldn't have the kids. Now, when he took Laianah, the police were flagged down by a woman who saw this exchange happen, and police told Hannah that as there was no family court order in place, the best they could do was ask him to return her daughter. Now, there is a police video, and knowing what we know now, Hannah was up against it from all corners. There's actual police body cam footage of them talking to her, and this poor woman was fighting for her life, and it just seems to me that she was up against it. They either seemed unwilling or unable to help her. And Rowan was still insistent that Hannah was having an affair with Mr. D. So in his fucked up head, he was still clinging on to my wife was having an affair, which was not true. And he told Hannah he wasn't returning Laianah until she fixed it. The police were trying to call Rowan, but he had blocked phone numbers that were private numbers, so they couldn't contact him. Hannah was now in the process of taking out a domestic violence order on Rowan, and on December 27, Rowan was issued with a letter from Hannah's lawyers demanding the return of Laianah. Rowan was scared by the letter and called a friend who was a solicitor, and Rowan gave him a false version of events. Now, his friend told him to return the child to Hannah, and Hannah's lawyers told him the previous custody arrangements were no longer applicable. On the 28th of December, Senior Constable Kent advised Hannah that she was taking out a DVO, a domestic violence order, on Rowan on Hannah's behalf, and Hannah was all for it. Police also took out a personal protection notice with the conditions that Rowan not be within 100 metres of the children or the Clarke's house until the matter was heard in court. Receiving this, Rowan fired off an email to Hannah's lawyers demanding 50-50 custody of the children and that Hannah drop them off and pick them up. A friend was so worried about Rowan and that he was going to hurt himself, he gave him $2,000 to get counselling. Now, Rowan still had Laianah during these days, and the police finally got hold of him on the 29th of December, where they served him with a police protection notice and a domestic violence order. They were in the house, and immediately Rowan started complaining, saying how unfair it was, blah, blah, blah. He started crying and carrying on while Laianah was sitting in his lap. And there's also police body cam of this, and the police were telling Rowan to get a friend to write a character reference saying that he is a great dad. He still refused to give Laianah back, and police had to actually drive home the fact that they had made the domestic violence application, not Hannah. He again gave false versions of events. He tried to say Hannah had taken his dog and his alcohol, and he was worried that she was going to make a scene. Laianah was returned to Hannah, and for the next few weeks, Rowan sent emails to Hannah's lawyers demanding to see the kids, and had one of his mates call Hannah, trying to guilt trip her, asking why Rowan couldn't see the children. Hannah was keeping in contact with Senior Constable Kent throughout all this, the two messaging often, though the tone of Senior Constable Kent's text messages were professional. She was pulled up for getting too personally involved. Hannah, I'm sure, was happy to have someone believe her and someone who could help her. After a particularly scary exchange with Rowan, where he grabbed Hannah's arm and dug his nails into her skin during an exchange with the kids, legal proceedings went ahead and Hannah was awarded full but shared custody, where it was agreed the kids would see their dad every second weekend and FaceTime him on Thursday nights. Rowan was also ordered to pay child support of $360 per month. On the 28th of January, Rowan posted on Facebook thanking his supporters and saying he will not stop fighting to have 50% custody. On the 30th of Jan, Aaliyah was crying, saying she didn't want to go to stay with her dad. It turns out that she had stood up to her dad, and he was then horrible to her. They went to their dad's anyway, and that night Hannah received a FaceTime call from Aaliyah, crying, saying they were on the highway somewhere, and her dad had no idea where he was, and she had no idea where her dad was driving them. He just put the kids in the car and just went off on a drive. On another occasion, Rowan dropped Trey off at the Clarkes, and Hannah saw explicit photos of Hannah in his car. She went to grab the photos and he grabbed her wrist, which made her scream. Hannah was advised to continue to go no contact, and she texted Senior Constable Kent saying, "It frightened me more than I let on. I know given the opportunity he wouldn't hesitate to kill me. I can see the look in his eyes." Unbelievably, Rowan continued to play the victim and tried to get a DVO on Hannah. Meanwhile, Hannah went to her GP and got a splint for her sprained wrist, courtesy of Rowan. Police paid Rowan a visit and spoke to him about the assault on Hannah. This went back and forth between police and solicitors, and of course it dragged on. Rowan still insisting he was being used as Hannah's punching bag, and Hannah wanting nothing to do with him. She felt so uncomfortable being near him, she requested the kid drop-offs be down at the local McDonald's so she was not alone with him. In the weeks between January and February, Rowan lost his job, was being chased by debt collectors, and his friends were worried he was going to hurt himself. Hannah asked her mother to help her put together a will, and when she asked why, Hannah said, "What happens when he kills me? He'll be in jail and I'll be dead. What happens to the children? I want you and Dad to have them." Sadly, Hannah's gut instinct about her abusive ex sadly turned out to be spot on, but it was even worse than she could have imagined. On the 17th of February, Rowan was seen walking into a hardware store called Bunnings and buying a jerry can, zip ties and methylated spirits. He then borrowed his auntie's car, telling her he was going to the Gold Coast and his car used too much petrol for such a trip. On the 18th of February, the next day, Rowan put the jerry can inside his auntie's car, and at 7:27 a.m. he was seen entering a service station and buying 4.6 litres of petrol, which he put into the jerry can, along with 3 Kinder Surprises and 2 bags of lollies. During the day, he called Men's Line inquiring about a 10-week men's health program, and at 6:25 p.m. that night, he called his friend in tears. He told his aunt he'd needed the calf just for one more day and transferred $920 to pay off his owed debt and called his kids. He spent the whole phone call crying, and Hannah told them to hang up if Dad wasn't going to talk. On the 19th of February, Hannah's mother got up and went to the gym, and she got home at around 6:20 a.m. Hannah and the kids were awake, and they all said good morning. Hannah went to get her and her mother a coffee, and she sat on the bed drinking it while her mum got ready for work. The girls were in their rooms playing, and Trey was watching a dinosaur show. At 6:48 a.m, Rowan left his house and filled the car up with petrol. At around 7 a.m, he got a coffee, telling the barista he was fighting with the ex-missus. He stayed and drank his coffee for around an hour. At 7:20 a.m, Hannah's mother kissed her daughter and grandkids goodbye and told Hannah that she loved her. At 8:17 a.m, Rowan parked outside the Clarkes' home. Hannah was leaving in her car, her three kids in the back. They were all strapped into their seats and booster seats. As Hannah started the car, Rowan jumped in the passenger seat holding a petrol container and told her to drive. Hannah screamed at him to get out. At 8:25 a.m., Michael Zemek was in his driveway when Hannah pulled up in front of him screaming, "Call the police, he's going to kill me. He's poured petrol on me." Michael saw Rowan in the passenger seat physically restraining Hannah. He was holding her around the chest with both arms as she struggled to get free. The car then burst into flames and Hannah got out of the car as Michael ran to it. He tried to get to the car, but he couldn't. It was just too hot. He told Hannah to get on the ground and roll as he hosed her off with his garden hose. When he got her out, he saw Rowan on the road alight and he put him out as well. He went back to Hannah, who was screaming about her kids being in the car, and he ran to the house asking his daughter to call 000. Another woman called Mrs. Covey, who was driving past when all this happened, stopped and started hosing Hannah as well, who was badly burnt. She asked if anyone had gotten the kids out, and she couldn't believe that Rowan had done this to her when she had a DVO on him. Hannah told her that Rowan had dropped the lighter when Hannah stopped the car to ask Michael for help. Many people had come to help by this stage, and the car started to roll back, still alight, still with the kids inside. At this stage, Rowan was on his feet and diving in and out of the car, finally emerging with a knife. Now, people thought he might have been trying to get his kids out. It looks like he was just going in there to get his knife. He kneeled on the footpath and stabbed himself in the stomach and curled into a fetal position. Hannah managed to tell police and first responders what had happened and who was responsible, and she also kept telling them her kids were in the car. Hannah had received burns to 80% of her body but was still lucid, telling police exactly what had happened, and she told a treating paramedic, "I hope he survives and rots in jail for the rest of his life." Hannah was treated by paramedics at the scene and on the way to Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital, where she was intubated in the ambulance and transferred to intensive care. But sadly, Hannah succumbed to her injuries and passed away at 5:40 p.m. that afternoon. When the car fire was extinguished, the little bodies of Trey, Laianah and Aaliyah were found. They were pronounced dead at 9:53 a.m. They were so badly burnt they could not be visually ID'd. Rowan died of his self-inflicted stab wound at 9:14 a.m. Autopsy revealed that Hannah had died from multi-organ failure as a result of the fire. Aaliyah died from smoke inhalation and burns. She had burns to 100% of her body. Laianah died from effects of the fire, and as did Trey. Rowan had left a suicide note, leaving no doubt that this was all premeditated. He wasn't a man pushed to the brink by his soon-to-be ex-wife. He didn't snap. He didn't have a mental breakdown. He had planned to murder his family in the most gruesome way possible. Hannah's parents were advised not to see Hannah due to the extent of her injuries, and the intensive care unit where Hannah had been, who usually provide family members with handprints, could only provide her with footprints because Hannah's hands were so severely burned. The funerals of Hannah and her children, Aaliyah, Laianah and Trey, took place in March, and over 1,000 people attended, including politicians and strangers. The service featured the colour pink, Hannah's favourite colour, and the one that her husband wouldn't let her wear, and butterfly. Lloyd Clarke, Hannah's father, called his estranged son-in-law scum and a monster, and he might have said he cared about, and on social media he posted, he might have said he cared and loved his children, but I know it was always about him coming first. The scum rots in hell. Hannah's brother Nat, who he was incredibly close to his sister, wrote that he had a sister and nieces and a nephew taken from me in the worst possible way by a heartless monster they called their dad, former NRL player Rowan Baxter. And I remember at the time, before we realised how bad this was, in the very early minutes of this happening, I remember seeing a headline saying ex-NRL player and family die in freak car fire. Like, who gives a fuck if he was an NRL player? My God. I think that headline copped the right criticism, and especially when we quickly found out it wasn't the tragic accident that we thought it was initially. Now, police and authorities cop scrutiny, and the states and the country's domestic violence laws and policies came under a microscope. An inquest into Hannah and her children's deaths were held, and though the coroner admitted there were many missed opportunities, especially the opportunity to have Rowan charged with assault when he grabbed Hannah on the arm, there was little that could be done. The coroner told the court that Rowan was a master manipulator and he had no interest in helping himself unless it served him. He recommended police have more training in responding to domestic violence, and he recommended more funding for men's behaviour change programs. Hannah's parents, in the aftermath of losing their daughter and grandchildren, set up a foundation called the Small Steps for Hannah Foundation. The foundation draws awareness of domestic violence, the different types of it, and how you can help. They educate, advocate, and have raised thousands of dollars in fundraising, as well as providing education and training for first responders, and they also have accommodation available for those escaping domestic violence. They have also helped make coercive control a crime in the state of Queensland. Coercive control is exactly what Hannah experienced, where she was told what she could wear, what she couldn't wear, who she could see, who she couldn't see. That is now a crime in the state of Queensland, and other states are soon to follow. That law is known as Hannah's Law, and that came into effect in May this year. And if you are interested in learning more about Small Steps for Hannah Foundation, what they offer and how they can help, you can visit their website. Small Steps for Hannah, and that is Small Steps for, the number 4, Hannah, HANNAH.com.au. Domestic violence is still common in Australia today and across the globe, and stats show one in 4 Australian women and 1 in 8 Australian men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. This abuse ranges from physical, emotional, financial, sexual, coercive, or controlling. And there is help available. If you or someone you know, someone you love needs help, there are services available. And the main one here in Australia is 1-800-RESPECT. All Hannah Clarke wanted was to be happy and loved and have a beautiful life with her children. But sadly, that was not to be. Her husband, the man who was supposedly in love with her, Rowan Baxter, killed his entire family because Hannah decided that she'd had enough of his shit. She'd had enough of his controlling, abusive behaviour, and she wasn't going to put up with it anymore. So he decided to kill them. His children's last minutes would have been horrific and painful. Hannah's last moments were filled with pain and horror and worrying about where her children were. He claimed he loved them, but his actions proved different. And now he's just going to be remembered as a murderer who took out his 3 children and his wife. And that's all he deserves to be remembered as. A man who couldn't handle being told no, so decided to wipe out his family. And for that, I hope he's rotting in hell. And for Anna's family and friends, and for those who loved her and her beautiful children, I hope their memories are a blessing. And you guys are doing such great work with the Small Steps for Hannah Foundation. You are such beautiful people. My heart goes out to you all. And that's it, guys. Another episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans done and dusted. Again, if you or someone you love are in trouble in a relationship, you're recognizing some of this behavior that I spoke about as being something that you're faced with, please get help. There is help available. You deserve so much better. And Again, thank you for your company, guys. You are all absolute rock stars. And until next time, stay safe, stay cool, stay caffeinated, and I will catch you all later.